Alright, so now we're going to do some head block-ins, some quicker studies. I'm going to do some bigger studies to make them loose and quick. Each one will be about 10 minutes, so we're going to do the same technique now with the figure block-in, but now using the head. So what we're looking for in these quicker studies, these two I'm going to do, are a good head lay-in of the ovoid structure, and then the side plane of the head, and find the landmarks fairly quickly. Of course, the neck too as well, always a neck. And then begin to find our structure, our volumetric structure, through a combination of a very loosely jointed volumetric figure, but also, really more importantly, a value block-in of the simple light and shadow side of the head, just like the Oreo cookie idea I talked about and demonstrated earlier with the full figure. So that's what we're looking for. So this gives you that initial value block-in, but it also gives you a rudimentary head structure as well. So it's rudimentary value, rudimentary head structure, and just remember, keep your value very, very simple. Number 5 in the value scale, or really right in between. Not too dark, not too light, so you can add core shadows, etc., and so on. Now, these rules can be broken over time, and you'll figure out your own way to break them. But right now, I would like, if you're really wanting to draw well or better, is to hang on to these drawing concepts and practice them until you get them down quite well. And then you can ad-lib. So right now I've worked the ovoid head, I got the side plane, and I've got the basic structure of the head, and now I'm working on the right profile of the pose, and not really nice active gestural kind of pose by our university model, Brian, here. And then starting to already delineate, see where I'm getting those shadow shapes of the side of the head. This is a real clear, easily readable image to draw from, about half and half shadow and half light. Notice that the detail in the shadow is very minimal because there's not a lot of reflected light. That's part of that's on purpose, is to get our students to begin to read shadows very simply and then add detail and shadows later. Far too often students will render shadows more specifically rather than what's in the light. So here I've got brow line, eye line, and the bottom of the nose roughly, and where the mouth will go. A little bit of a chin delineation too. And again, we don't want to do a full structural drawing. We want to get to our block-in relatively quickly, but we've got to find where those shadow shapes fall. So as I'm working the mouth here, this particular way of drawing now is a little bit more advanced, and it's using a little combination of structural volumetric techniques and looking at those specific shadow shapes to be able to block in a light and dark read on the model. And it's almost, really the shadow shapes are almost there, except for a little bit in the nose and maybe a little bit around the eyes too. So we're not going for major detail. We're trying to get a light and dark read, structural read, get a decent likeness in 10 minutes, so that we can begin to slow it down, add core shadows, and really detail out in this case a head image in relatively quicker terms, and then also background tone as well. So really what's left now is to lay in kind of where the eyes go, and so feeling in the nose, and feeling the nose brow, and through here feeling a little bit of the eye, the shadowed part of the eye, the ball that's casting a shadow on the brow ridge of the nose there. Feeling that down the side of the nose cavity, nose area, as the cartilage comes down, and feeling where the bottom of the nose, the tip nib of the nose, kind of rounded and later pointed, to feel that's in light, so that'll be in light. The nostril angle coming through there. And then most of the rest of the nose on the left side is in shadow, the nostril, except for a little bit of the nostril there. Then the eye, so I'm kind of feeling the eyeball, and then a lid, and then I'm just going to block in here the pupil and iris area. And then later I'll come back and put the lid on top a little bit. But he's got a pretty wide-eyed expression already. Chiseling out the cheek there a little further. Jaw and cheek. Blocking in the pupil and iris too as well. A lot of times I'll do that before I do anything. I'm just thinking about a golf ball or a ball and then where that little decal of the pupil and iris is. And then blocking that in. This particular technique is very much how I teach and I was trained for blocking of painting. So I'm using charcoal here on newsprint, quite big newsprint too as well, 24 inch by 36 inch. I'm not sure which A size that is for European size, but it's big. It's bigger, and I'll use a charcoal stick in a moment to block it. Now, getting the lay-in of the shadow shapes of the nose and also the cast shadow that it's making too as well. Hitting the nostril just a little bit and through there. There's not a lot of detail. I'm just thinking really fast about volumetric structure and then also facilitating very quickly between structure and shadow shape to get a volume to figure pretty quickly. And you'll see how this come together pretty quick. Each one of these two that I'm doing are just about 10 minutes, so it's pretty fast. It's going a little faster here. You know, don't worry about speed in the beginning, but later on you want to be able to see if you can, excuse me, I'm going to take a drink here, get the entire thing in and fast, as accurate as you possibly can. But ultimately, accuracy is more important than speed. It tends to be an art school thing where we speed things up to get more studies in. So I've got just about everything I want out of the lay-in, and now I'm ready to block in, and we're going to block in both the shadow tone of the head, including the hair. Look how that's just mopped in. Big, broad stroke, no fancy value delineation. We want one value to separate light from dark, very two-dimensional still kind of approach, and we're going to hit the background too as well here on the right side of the head. I'm going to bring that tonality up to the edge of the model. Okay, we don't want a halo around it. We want to bring the value all the way up to the edge of the model because that's a molecular boundary. We got to have that. Feeling that forehead centering through there. Value around the eyebrow. I'm going to put that lid hopefully back on. Look, he looks really wide-eyed there. Maybe I don't. Let's see. There, yeah, I do. Okay, there we go. That's a little better. I'm not worried about a lot of detail. I just want to get enough so you can see that structure. Fill that in just a little bit. And then the rest of the block in now on the atmosphere around the model, on the light side of the head, it's like that Oreo cookie. That's the darker chocolate breading in through here on the back of the atmosphere. The light of the head, the model's head, that's the cream filling. And all the rest of this on the left is the other side of the Oreo cookie sandwich, if you will. So, you know, it's a pretty simple concept to get. It's harder in practice because your eye is going to try to deceive you. It's going to try to want to jump to specific detailed areas, and quite often I'm only looking at the model just a little bit. Once I get specific things and I stop looking at it and I'm just worried about just a block. And look how the blocking is one simple value overall, from the shadow side to the other shadow side to a little bit of detail in the eyes, the eyebrow. And there's a lot of work still left to do in this drawing, but that's for another time, another process. This is just about the simple blocking, and look how quickly we can get to it. Pretty fast, and that's what we're looking for in these sessions, is to find a quick, efficient, accurate structural way to get there, and it takes some time and practice to use your block in. Come back here in the shadow of the eye socket a little bit on the side of the head, and I think we've got what we need there. All right, so let's go on to our next one here. So, image of a former student, Stephen Wheeler here, one of our excellent students who's graduated, gone on to a beginning career in illustration and design. So working with now the head, getting just that ovoid structure here. And a lot of times what I'm doing, I get a little bit more advanced ovals. I start to get the shape of the idiosyncratic parts of the head where the hair is a little bit. So it's a little bit kind of an oblong sort of stranger oval. And getting the neck, bringing the neck down with the collar and the shirt in through here on the right side, and getting that laid in, and filling that collar in a little bit. So we always want to start in a head drawing. Head, neck, we'll find our landmarks, our side plane. If we see them, we see a little bit on each side of the head, a little bit here, but it's a little bit less on this particular drawing technique about volumetric drawing, but it still comes into play. So it's very much a gesture here. We're getting a gesture, gesturing down the head. Working with the collar. Now coming up and feeling the forehead and feeling that little tuft of hair at the top. And then down below finding the ending, relative ending point of the chin and the digastric area. Up the jaw somewhat, a little wider since he's looking up a little bit. And those ears are going to be pushed far lower because of the perspective and where the camera is. Camera's about eye level, but he's looking up, so it changes. His head's tilted back. So see where those ears point lower. So I bring a line, a diagonal line from the bottom of each ear over just to tell me what's happening with that. And then I'll cut into the forehead to find the hairline, and then the open part of the temporal lobe up there on either side. The hair gets removed. It looks like he's almost bald, but he's really not. He's got a lot of hair. Unlike myself, you can tell in this video probably where when my head sticks in, how little hair I have left, sadly. Oh well. I'll get over it. So now I'm getting in the bottom of the nose line, feeling that, feeling the hair on the side a little bit, sketching that in, feeling where the top of the ear may be. It's all intuitive, but there's a standard model in there that we're feeling. Side of the jaw may be coming up, side plane. Hair reaching in, and I'll make some corrections here. Center line now of my model, off center, tilted, right? So it's tilted a little bit wider in the neck there. Coming up here. Now filling in shadow shape a little bit, doing a little bit of both. So that big shadow shape on the forehead, on the left forehead, feeling the eye line curved, coming around and over, and then feeling the hair on the right side again. Eye line, center of the nose, jaw. So I'll start to work around like, okay, I get comfortable with all that. Like, okay, ear, lower ear, lobe area, more triangular in this case as the ear goes back and falls away. In this particular view, so there's the top of the lobe. Look how low the ears sit. That's not abnormal because we're in he's a tilted view. So he's a slightly three-point head in our view because he's tilted up away from us looking up. So lower ear I can finish out. Now the jaw coming in a little bit. Of course all that's in shadow, so there's not really a shape to work. And then I get down to the chin here, delineate the top of the mentolabial group of the chin muscles, which is kind of triangular in design. He's got a little bit of a cleft too, which is there on the model. Gesture of the mouth. Kind of a beginning mouth gesture. Cheekbone. And then shadow lay-in further, coming down to the bulk of the brow nose ending as it ends up in the brow there. Has a square shape and slightly foreshortened the length of the nose. It's now filling the bottom of the nose, slightly curved and tilted, tip of the nose raised higher. And in that bottom view of the nose is very triangular with a nose tip at the top and the two nostrils to the left and to the right. So I just indicate that by a slight triangular shape, first of all. And then we'll get a little bit more detail too there. Feeling the brow now, the gesture of the brow curving around the forehead, and then feeling in, blocking in a little bit of its darker value, and then blocking in the hair shape so I can start to see that. See how we're working it kind of a little bit of both together. Pretty much ready to start blocking in the atmosphere if I want, just to go ahead and get that working for me, and I'll kind of reshape the head as I do that a little bit, get the hair a little bit more active, and then start to block in already the atmosphere behind the model's head. Reconfigure that somewhat and really comfortably. Do a quick mop in of all this value. Mop in. I've got the side of my charcoal stick and I'm barely pushing down. It's so light. It's almost doing the work effortlessly for me. I don't want to push down too hard so that it gets too dark. Remember, you want to keep your values at halfway between light and dark. And sometimes if you're going to fudge on that, which I do, I make it even lighter. There's no sense in going darker because you can build up to those darks later. Putting on the right ear, it's got that slight tilt as his head is tilted back, but it's also tilted to our right as well. Yeah, a bit more of the block in on the right side of the model. Flip back from the charcoal stick to the pencil. I'll do that often, at least in this drawing. Getting that little shadow shape of the collar and in the neck as it gets buried and cast shadow from the light. What side's the light source coming from? If you don't know, you better know, right? It's coming from the right, relatively to the side. He's in about half light, half shadow. The left side of his head's in shadow, so you know the right side is lit. Light source will be always opposite of the shadow, and the shadow will always be opposite, moving opposite from the light. And delineating that cleft chin just a little bit to get a little bit more lifelike. You know, block-ins they're going to be lifelike. They're going to look figurative, but they're not necessarily a complete detailed rendering. It's like looking through a lens that's almost in focus, but not quite. Because you're blocking in. You're getting to that step of high focus. So laying in the shadow shape on the neck, feeling the area of the Adam's apple, the throat, the hyoid area in that shadow shape, and I can go ahead and block all that in just to fill that tonality in there. And it's like looking at little shapes, little shards of glass or whatever you need to put together to make it relevant. Block in here on the back, left side of the model, run that into the ear, run that into the head, because all that's in shadow. See how that's all in shadow? Look how quick that's going. So we're about halfway into the drawing already, and it's starting to emerge. But now the next step is we need to find those shadow boundaries of the center of the head, where the eye, the nose, brow coming down, the cheekbone opening that little pocket of light, and that little pocket of light below the lip on the left side, the top lip on the left side. Will be interesting to find that too as well. Once I have those, I can really finish all of the block in and delineate and get a little bit more detailed, even in a quicker block in. Coming down now the right side of the head, feeling the curve of the cranium, zygomatic area, cheek. Nice cheekbone, and I'm going to bring it to the other side over here because they're aligned, and then I can find where that cast shadow and form shadow fall together, and there's a little opening there. You can see the cheekbone protrude outward. So all this then, once I find that little slit under the eyebrow before the eyeball, that's going to give me another blocking area. That right eyeball, his left, looking at in the image, the left eye on the shadow side is all in shadow. Even though the white of the eye is in shadow. So after that little area, that little light area underneath the eye socket, the rest of it is in shadow. So you can choose to draw a little detail in the shadow, or you can block it in first and draw detail. It's up to you. You can do both of those. Let's see what I do. I forgot as I narrate this. Okay. So it looks like I'm going to have a little structure in there. I am going to add the iris, pupil and iris, just for realistic effect, even though they're in shadow. Gets that opening a little bit. And so looking down, the shadow coming down the middle of the nose, roughly to the end of the septal area, on the left side of the philtrum of the space between the mouth and the nose. And starting to get now the lip curvature. Okay, and I can block in that, put on the lid, close that up a little bit further to open slightly. I can really start to block in and finish here, find that shadow shape. There we go, coming over, and all that's going to be bathed back in shadow now. So there was my shadow shape right there, down the middle of the nose, over with a little oval kind of space on his cheek there to show that cast shadow and form shadow on the cheek. So I can get a little bit more detailed with the nose here for block in. And then that underneath shadow under the nose and the top of the lip coming over. There we go there. Don't want to get too dark. Don't want to get a coarse shadow yet, because not ready to show you that yet. Get there in a little bit. And I'll vacillate back to a charcoal pencil sometimes, just to show you that. You could do it all with stick or pencil. Filling in the nostril a little bit, because since that's a darker area, just be careful. It's not a circle, it's an oval. My nostrils are very oval-like. Top lip really arched out, curves, beautiful curve, and then cascades down and pooches back up to give that little gap between the mouth and the cheek and the bottom jaw as skin gathers there. A little forehead shape up there, kind of a triangular shape. Just kind of what I see out of that to fill in a little bit, to show the slight cavity there between the eye sockets as it bulges out. And that can get smoothed out and altered with more further drawing. But right now we're still in very much the beginning phases of a drawing, the block in, separating light from dark. About 5 more minutes to go here, getting the curve of the lip, top of the lip a little bit. Of course the teeth are going to be there, so that's going to delineate the teeth. So I'm just trying to get the shapes first, and there you go. You can see where you get that kind of mouth open, a little gape a little bit. And this little light shape on the side of the head. Some artists could eliminate that. You could eliminate both little areas of light on the cheek and also on the kind of the lower center of the lips area on the left. But I'm going to include them just to be faithful to the image. But another artist might take them out if it doesn't work in the aesthetic, which is fine. Repositioning and changing, getting clear with the chin and finding its ending so I can block that little section in and really start to clean this out for block in further. Finding that shadow shape on the lip and ending that, and there's the block in or the mop in of that to clean that up a little bit, to get that light to read for us. Nose, cheek, touching up here, getting a little bit more specific. Getting a little bit more of the shape together. So I need to block in a little bit more on the right side, a little bit of the cheek. There's not a lot there because it's mostly in light. That's what makes a block in more difficult if you have very the lighter side. But I can get the brown. We can get the structure of the eye and the pupil and iris, and a little bit of the top of the cheek, and that'll be enough for what we need from our block in. Finding that edge, keeping it simple, nothing too detailed or specific yet. Working on structure, and in this case, value. Value and volume are working together, the two V's. The value and the volumetric figure. So kind of feeling the eyeball as it sits in the socket, and then feeling the lid, the shadow on the lid since it's being lit a little bit lower. Feeling that through there, and then going to put on the pupil and iris, that disc, is it looking up a little bit? It's getting to look up there. And we'll put that bottom on lid in a moment so we won't have such a crazy wide-eyed look. Right in through there. A few more minutes here. Not a lot left to do. A little cheek structure, a little lid maybe further. Shadow underneath there. There we go. To get that to feel a little bit better. It's pretty loose, pretty quick, pretty painterly or gestural in these. This technique could be very tight. It's still going to be general no matter the size or scale that you're using, but I want to get through these pretty quickly so you can see it. Larger gestural format. The lip can get toned in a little bit since it's darker on the lighter side. Slightly a lighter tone than some of the basic block in. There we go. Same thing with that little cheek there, just to give a little bit more definition. So cheating maybe a little bit, but not really, because we're going to get into so much value variation in the future, and coarse shadow. Because the next step will be to add coarse shadows, which is going to be an exciting part of the drawing to give it a nice, beautiful pop. And just working these shadow edges a little bit and clean up the drawing, make it look a little nicer. Last minute left. 1 minute left. Neck could be a little bit wider. Go back up here and clean this head up just a little bit where that stretches over. Here, reconfigure that jaw and hairline there. Bring that down a little bit, just to separate a little bit. Maybe separation, split of the teeth, just slightly the filter. Not a whole lot on the teeth. There's not really the point here. Just getting a little finish quality for blocking. That's about it. All right. Good luck out there. Keep drawing. Work hard on it. Take care.